2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Tuesday, the 12th of November, 2024, and this is program number 1281 of the Lunchroom, and I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to radio 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website, rcisaintlucia.com, and we're also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. And of course, if you want to tell us what's on your plate today, well, you can call in to do so. And the number is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also use WhatsApp, that number, 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, some birthday greetings for today going out to Mrs. Azealia Glass George. Happy birthday to you, Azealia, and we're hoping that you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. Hope it's a great one indeed. We also want to send out birthday greetings to Mrs. Vernette Santoma Fontanelle, and we do hope that you're having a fantastic day, Vernette. Hope it's a great one for you. Also sending out birthday greetings to Glenda Chesmin, celebrating her birthday as well. Happy birthday to you. Hope it is a fantastic day for you. Now, a bit of history for today. In the year 764, Tibetan troops occupied Chang'an for 15 days, and that was the capital of Chinese Tang Dynasty. In the year 1880, the best-selling American novel Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ by a soldier named Lew Wallace was published. 1912 on this day, the British explorer Robert Falcon Scott's diary and body were found in Antarctica. 1927 on this day, Leon Trotsky was expelled from the Soviet Communist Party, paving the way for Joseph Stalin to consolidate complete power. 1936 on this day, for those of you who love gardening, the first ever TV gardening show, it was called In Your Garden, aired on the BBC. In 1942 on this day, the naval battle of Guadalcanal began between Allied and Japanese naval forces in the Solomon Islands. And that saw the United States force prevailing after days of fighting. 1966 on this day, Buzz Aldrin took the first ever space selfie photo of himself performing extravehicular activity in space during the Gemini program. 1990 on this day, the World Wide Web was first proposed by CERN computer scientists Tim Berners-Lee and Robert Cailliau. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought to you with the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. This all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Pots, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bossy Grocery Lanes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, the world is still observing what is to come, as we are exactly 1 week from last week's November the 5th general election over in the United States of America. That has seen a significant change in political power in the United States. Of course, most critically, that of the commander in chief, the head of the chief executive officer, if you so like, the president of the United States. President elect has been determined, and he will be sworn in come inauguration day, somewhere around January the 20th, 2025, none other than Donald Trump. Now, of course, there have been many who've been speculating regarding the implications of a second Trump presidency, particularly because he has had a first go at it already between 2016, 2020, or 2021, 2017 into 2021. And depends on how you look at it because of the timing of when the elections are and when they actually get into office. But he's had his first 4-year term, and we've seen lots of controversy of it, lots of attempts, perhaps, to push through certain things that he wanted. And largely, we could perhaps look at that term in office as a Trump light term, because for all intents and purposes, Donald Trump was not very successful in his first term in office. And he himself probably may very well admit that he wasn't as successful as he wanted to be. But of course, he'd be blaming a lot of people for the lack of his inability to succeed in many areas which he, in fact, promised the American people he would. And one of these has certainly been that of the issue of immigration. And the United States is undoubtedly an immigrant state. It has been built on immigration for quite some time. From its get-go, you can perhaps say so. It saw beyond the British colonial period, when it became an independent state, it was buoyed by the fact that there was large resources, large tracts of land in particular, which were claimed by this new state. And effectively, what we saw happen, of course, was a tremendous extent of loss of life, of effective genocide of the indigenous peoples of what we now know as the United States of America. And the lands were claimed over periods of time. Now, of course, it went from being largely a country that was Atlantic looking, developing colony states on the Atlantic coast, and then moved up to the Mississippi River, to the Appalachian Mountains, and then beyond that onto the Mississippi. And then, of course, that big, vast tract of the Louisiana Territory being purchased from the French, who themselves were reeling from lots and lots of internecine warfare from the revolutionary periods and Napoleon. And then they found themselves having to sell this land to the United States, what was then known as New France. And of course, helped the continuation of this massive enterprise of the United States of America. And of course, huge amounts of land were cut up on the plates, and they were effectively given away to people largely of European descent who were seeking better fortunes away from Europe, which of course was at that point considered overpopulated, and all the land had largely been owned by the nobility and the wealthy, and so the United States was an opportunity for large scale immigration. And now, of course, it's grown tremendously since that period, and we're talking now of a country that is the third most populous in the world, with about 330 odd million inhabitants. And of course, the big question that of those who come without a legal means. Now, of course, what has happened over the years is that we've seen a change of fortune in a lot of countries, especially in the Americas. They, in fact, have seen the opportunity of the United States of America and have been flocking there for many, many, many decades now. Of course, depending on the time depending on the decade, perhaps they were more welcome than others. And in addition to that, there have been some specific provisions made for people coming from particular countries, like that of Cuba, for example, and now Venezuela and even the Ukraine. And even Ukraine. And so you have seen some measures to target individuals seeking asylum from or places where you have serious refugee crises, and that has certainly allowed for certain groups to be able to come in. But we, of course, see right now that the immigrant is being blamed for quite a lot of the problems that the United States is facing. And that is not perhaps characteristic only of the United States of America. We can look to the United Kingdom, for example, and with Brexit, a lot of that was because of immigration, a lot of immigration coming out of Eastern Europe in particular, from these newly invited members of the European Union. And again, like I said, depending on the time, it may have been encouraged. For example, in the post-war period in the United Kingdom, there was a demand for labor, and so we saw the Windrush generation going across there during that period of time, and we saw lots of Polish individuals also coming into the United Kingdom at that point. But of course, as times shift, we of course see that sometimes people believe that there's a need for caps on the matter of immigration. So immigration has always been a pretty tense and controversial matter in many parts of the world. But of course, what we're seeing, however, is perhaps a bit of an exaggeration of where things are at to make the case and to make the claim. And just recently, I was listening to an interview with the Vice President-elect, J.D. Vance, effectively suggesting that there are 20 million immigrants, illegal immigrants in the United States of America. And of course, they just need to get at it and to start getting these individuals out. And there have been many suggestions, however, that this is a lot more complicated a matter than what is put out there by the likes of J.D. Vance as well as Donald Trump. And part of the challenge, of course, is that in many instances, these immigrants, these illegal, quote unquote, illegal immigrants, actually have family in the United States who are legal in quite often in those many situations. And so they, in fact, tend to be going to family, going and staying at family. And in addition to that, very many of them, in fact, are in the workforce. They have gotten themselves into the workforce and quite often are doing critical jobs where you find a lot of sometimes people don't even want to do those jobs. But in addition to that, uh, they also are perhaps keeping the economy of the recipient country afloat. And this is not, like I said, something that is peculiar to the United States of America. It is very much an issue that you see all around the world. Uh, just recently, in fact, I was listening to a an interview with the new president of Botswana. And now, Botswana, as you would appreciate, is a landlocked country in Africa, and it quite often has been held up as one of the success stories in terms of good governance in Africa. Botswana, although it doesn't have access to the sea, it has been able to grow its economy largely because of diamonds, diamond mining, and that extractive industry is perhaps really has created a sort of bit of a mono economy, in as much as they have been trying to diversify and to look at areas such as tourism, for instance. Lots of wildlife, the Okavango Delta, and lots of people want to go and see the elephants and other wildlife. So they are trying to diversify in that way. But of course, it's a country with significant challenges, very dry, and but yet still, and relatively small population as African countries go, less than less than 3 million people in Botswana, but yet still it has its own issues with immigration, and and they in fact are seeing that of course their neighbor to the east or to the northeast, that of Zimbabwe, is in fact one of the countries where they're seeing the most of their immigrants coming from. And the new president was in fact speaking to this matter of how to tackle this issue of immigration, because of course there would be no doubt, individuals in Botswana who would be saying, hey, you know what, these Zimbabweans need to go back. They're causing issues and whatnot, and they're using our services, and it's a problem, right? But in fact, it was quite interesting to listen to him, because he was making the point that these Zimbabweans are in fact coming into Botswana, and they're doing a lot of jobs that the average Botswanan does not want to do. And he was making the point that, look, we know that this is the situation, and of course, we're not saying that there's any issue with Botswanans not wanting to take up certain jobs. But the reality is that these people are, in fact, making an economic contribution. We are aware that there are potential risks with respect to that, because we have some people coming across illegally, and so therefore we don't know the individuals who are coming across. There may very well be national security risks regarding that, and the potential for maybe increased crime, and of course, when people are coming into a country and they're illegal, then there is that greater propensity for them to, in fact, commit crimes because they are under the radar. They have to be, sort of existing on the fringes. And he made all those points, and to say that, look, for us to say that we're going to be taking these people and deporting them, when in fact they are working, they are making a contribution, it therefore is not really that simple. And in fact, it's going to cost us a lot of money to be able to find these people, deport them, and as he said, send them to the border for them to only find another way to come back in. So he said what certainly in the case of Botswana, what they would like to see happen is an approach where they can allow these individuals to become part of the system, so that you would want them to be brought in some way, whether on a short-term work arrangement, some means by which you can in fact ensure that you know that they are present, you've identified them, and that they are part of the system. They're making their contributions in terms of paying their taxes or whatever the case may be. Now, that's part of the challenge in the United States too. And just as in Botswana, invariably, a lot of times, these individuals who are coming in illegally, they in fact are being manipulated. They are in fact quite often being taken advantage of by sometimes very much legal entities, businesses, whether small or large, sometimes hire these individuals knowing that they can in fact pay them a lower rate, and sometimes get away with not having to pay them whatever their contributions, whether to the national insurance or whatever statutory obligations exist, PAYE, whatever the case may be, for those individuals. And so therefore, it sometimes is attractive to some of these companies to be able to hire these undocumented immigrants. And so the approach, of course, is where the big question lies. The approach of taking this very brute force hardline approach of saying, hey, we are going to expel all the illegal immigrants is perhaps, one can even say, a bit of a fallacy, because the cost implications are so dire. In fact, I think I was looking at one estimate, and it was almost suggesting that, the cost of capturing just one individual, well, they put the figure for just for $1 million, if you were to say doing $1 million per year. And they were pointing out that, look, this was going to be costing you into the billions of dollars. I think the figure that was started was something like $8.8 billion to be able to deport 1 million people. And so then the big question was that the best way to be actually spending the resources of the state in that way? So, of course, there have been major promises in the past by Trump, whether it's the wall, and we've seen that, of course, that never really happened. That was not a successful build out. And the reality is the United States will continue to be, for some time, a land of hope and interest for many, especially if the conditions, the living conditions, the lack of opportunities in the rest of the Americas in particular continue to be so stark. Now, like I said, there's a lot of perhaps propaganda and misinformation on the matter of immigration. And I actually wanted to share what was a piece that was done, a bit of research done, and it's been done by the Pew Research Center, and they've been looking at the matter of immigration for many, many years now, and other issues which in fact impact our world. And immigration is one of the topics that they're very much known for, the matters of immigration and migration. And so there's, in fact, a very interesting piece which was written by Jeffrey Passel and Jean-Manuel Krostat, dated July the 22nd, 2024. What we know about unauthorized immigrants living in the United States. And it reads as follows. The unauthorized immigrant population in the United States grew to 11 million in 2022, according to new Pew Research Center estimates based on the 2022 American Community Survey, the most recent year available. The increase from 10.5 million in 2021 reversed a long-term downward trend from 2007 to 2019. This is the first sustained increase in the unauthorized immigrant population since the period 2005 to 2007. However, the number of unauthorized immigrants living in the United States in 2022 was still below the peak of 12.2 million in 2007. These new estimates do not reflect events since mid-2022. The U.S. unauthorized immigrant population has likely grown over the past 2 years based on several alternative data sources. For example, encounters with immigrants at U.S. borders reached record levels throughout 2022-2023, and the number of applicants waiting for decisions on asylum claims increased by about 1 million by the end of 2023. In addition, through December 2023, about 500,000 new immigrants were paroled into the country through 2 federal programs, the Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan program, and that's called CHNV program, and Uniting for Ukraine, and that's a U4U. And those groups, like these, have traditionally been considered part of the unauthorized immigrant population, but almost none of them appear in the 2022 estimates. While these new arrivals probably increase the U.S. unauthorized immigrant population, it remains to be seen by how much. New arrivals can't simply be added to the existing estimate because some unauthorized immigrants leave the country every year, some die, and some gain lawful status. Here are the key findings about the U.S. unauthorized immigrant population changed recently. 1. The number of unauthorized immigrants from Mexico dropped to 4 million in 2022 from a peak of 6.9 million in 2007. Mexico has long been and remains the most common country of birth for unauthorized immigrants. From 2019 to 2022, the unauthorized immigrant population from nearly every region of the world grew. The Caribbean, South America, Asia, Europe, and Sub-Saharan Africa all saw increases. 3. The unauthorized immigrant population grew in 6 states from 2019 to 2022: Florida, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and Texas. Only California saw a decrease. 4. About 8.3 million U.S. workers in 2022 were unauthorized immigrants, an increase from 7.4 in 2019. The 2022 number is essentially the same as previous highs in 2008 and 2011. Now, we're going to continue with this piece. It's certainly very, very interesting and very instructive, and gives a pretty good sense of what is going on with respect to immigration in the United States of America. But we're going to have to take a break at this point, of course, end our dish of the day, and so we can head across to take in our weather report.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. This all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also black, that's why and vanity. Pops, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Lag Street in Castries, Bosses, Brazilians, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, we got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style. We are
and princess, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the lunchroom. Our apologies. We seem to be having some issues getting that weather report to you. So we'll be going straight back into the program. Of course, we are 26 minutes before the hour of 2 o'clock. And you can call in if you so choose. That number is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And don't forget, we also can be followed on our Facebook Live. You can send in your comments, messages, and questions to Facebook as well. And we also have that option. Don't forget of WhatsApp. You can call into 724-0008. We were just having a look at the matter of illegal immigration or immigration on a whole in the United States of America. Given, of course, that many St. Lucians and people from the Caribbean and people from the Americas seek out better fortunes outside of their home countries. This, in very many instances, is done legally by the various programs that exist with these respective countries. Some are more open than others. Canada, for example, is one such country that has had a pretty open policy over the years, albeit, in fact, you would recall although we had for a very long time easy access to Canada, not requiring visas, there was that period of time where visas were in fact required. And it's only, I think, just last year there was a change in the arrangement, although it still only applies for St. Lucians who have U.S. visas. Others still would require going through the process of getting a visa. So they sort of piggybacked, so to speak, on the U.S. in that regard. And of course, Canada, the world's second largest country by area, is in fact one of the least populated of the developed world, with just about 40 million or so inhabitants over in Canada. And it has certainly been seeking out a policy of multiculturalism, as it's called there, trying to embrace immigrants and to bring them in. And of course, depending on where you go, you will see certain groups being more prevalent than others. Of course, on the west coast, the Pacific coast of Canada, in particular Vancouver, very, very strong, very large immigrant population out of China and Southern Asia, Southeast Asia. Whereas in the case of Ontario, you see pretty large groups coming from a lot of other places, but particularly a lot of India, a lot of Indians, migrants into Ontario. And of course, in the case of Quebec, you see quite a number coming out of Africa, particularly Francophonie countries. So certainly it has been, has it been a success story though? I don't know, because certainly there are challenges with respect to the current environment. And we're seeing right now the pressures being brought on the Liberal government of Mr. Trudeau, and quite likely having to go to the polls pretty soon due to his coalition government there. It's one of the many coalition governments that is facing a very hard time. Germany also facing issues with respect to immigration. They're going to the polls as a result of the collapse of that center-left coalition there. Olaf Scholz's SPD has kicked out its partner, who was in fact the head of the party there, I think AFD. No, sorry, not AFD, but this other centrist party, which in fact was in charge of the finance ministry, have not been able to agree on major issues in terms of financing of the upcoming budget. And in that instance, they have in fact decided to go to the polls February the 23rd of next year. So definitely immigration is a major talking point in very, very many developed world countries. And some may say that the United States has been perhaps more accommodating than many other countries around the developed world. So, and in fact, I think that is still the case. In fact, the United States has long had more immigrants than any other country. And in fact, the US is home to 1/5 of the world's international migrants. And these immigrants come from just about every country in the world. It is no longer the case where we're seeing just coming out of Latin America, as we've been seeing from what we've been reading from that study. In fact, increases are being seen from all parts of the world, including Asia as well. So to continue with that piece from the Pew Research Center, looking at the composition of the U.S. Immigrant population. Immigrants make up 14.3% of the nation's population in 2022. And remember, this is immigrants in general, they're saying, not just illegals. That share was slightly higher than in the previous 5 years, but below the record high of 14.8% in 1890. As of 2022, unauthorized immigrants represented 3.3% of the total U.S. population and 23% of the foreign-born population. These shares were lower than the peak values in 2007, but slightly higher than in 2019. Meanwhile, the lawful immigrant population grew steadily from 24.1 million in 2000 to 36.9 million in 2022. And stick a pin there, you can see then over a period of 12 years, effectively nearly a 12 million person increase in the lawful immigration population in the United States. So roughly, we can almost say that it appears that on average, about 1 million people are coming in legally every year to the United States of America. But note that in terms of the total population, unauthorized immigrants actually only represent about 3.3% of the population. Meanwhile, the growth was driven by a rapid increase in the number of naturalized citizens from 10.7 million to 23.4 million. The number of lawful permanent residents dropped slightly from 11.9 to 11.5 million. So, of course, there are people who are in the United States who are not citizens. They're permanent residents. Some people may know them as sometimes they're green card holders. And they're actually saying that number has actually kind of dropped slightly. And you would think so, because what tends to happen too is that in as much as you have some of these individuals coming in through some of these programs, these residency programs, you also have individuals also shifting to become naturalized. So they become citizens over a period of time. So it's interesting that the number of permanent residents has not actually shifted very, very much, even with this current situation. As a result, in 2022, 49% of all immigrants in the country were naturalized U.S. citizens. Who lives with unauthorized immigrants? That's the question that they're trying to answer by Pew Research. Unauthorized immigrants live in 6.3 million households that include more than 22 million people. Let me just read that again. Unauthorized immigrants live in 6.3 million households that include more than 22 million people. So just remember, they've estimated that unauthorized illegal immigrants are somewhere around 12 million. So you're seeing that these 12 million people are living in, they estimate 6.3 million people, so roughly about 2 per household. And that is out of households where the total population is 22 million. So in fact, there are other people who are in fact legal living in these households. So these households represent 4.8% of the 130 million US households. That's 4.8%, roughly 5%. Basically, 1 in 20 American households has an illegal immigrant living in them. Now, of course, that figure will be different depending on the city, the state, the county, whatever the case may be. Right? Here are some facts about these households in 2022. In 86% of these households, either the householder or their spouse is an unauthorized immigrant. Let me just read that again. In 86% of these households, either the householder or their spouse is an unauthorized immigrant. I think that's a little bit interesting, though, because it's not saying necessarily that, in fact, because you will have in some instances, perhaps the household, the person in charge of the household, and maybe another individual in that household, being the spouse, is unauthorized. Now, I know what you may be thinking, because a lot of individuals, the way they in fact do become naturalized is through marriage. And so you will find that an individual would be marrying and becoming a citizen through that means. Now, of course, in this instance, by saying 86% of these households, so it is actually suggesting that you have perhaps more than one person being an illegal, and quite likely the other person in there is not actually how should I say, a citizen. So the person may very well be a permanent resident, or that other spouse may be, again, another unauthorized immigrant, right? Almost 70% of these households are considered mixed status, meaning that they also contain lawful immigrants or US-born immigrants. Let me just read that again. Almost 70% of these households are considered mixed status, meaning that they also contain lawful immigrants or US-born residents. We got a call coming in, so we're going to try to take that call in at this time as we head to the phone lines. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
How are you, Mr. George, and your family? Everybody cool?
Very good, thank you, caller.
Yeah.
They are. And how are you doing?
I'm all right, Tom.
Good.
Passing stage, you should be talking about legal immigrants and illegal. Shelton, you never stopped. Shelton, sorry.
Alex, yes.
Alex, you never stop to think, how long will legal remain legal?
How long will legal remain legal?
Under this new regime, we face this new dispensation in America.
Well, there are some suggestions that he is looking to change some of the legislation. Well, not even necessarily change the legislation, but he is.
These guys are going to go to the Supreme Court, which they have had that covered for. And one of the first things Trump made sure he had covered. And then you have the House, you have Congress, you have everything now.
Yeah.
He has everything now. What is to stop him from saying that, people, second generation people, are no longer legal?
Well, that's a very interesting point that you're making. I think for sure.
We keep harping on that. We're still in a mindset that, of what obtained pre-Trump,
No, I don't think people are.
Not forwarding our whole psyche to that we uncharted thing there now. Territory, uncharted. The whole thing, the whole everything. Truth is not truth anymore. Justice is not justice anymore. Nothing is as like it used to be, In other words, where you say, okay, he tried, he's a felon. They dropped the charges already. Chances are the people who charge him with the 42K things, they might end up in jail because they are felons now, according to the new dispensation.
They may be targeted, yes. Retribution.
So I don't know. I find we talking too much, like when we discussing Trump and what really obtains there now. Like you don't really appreciate it. We don't understand what really we're facing there. We tend to think that it was all rhetoric, and we'll go back to, okay, there are certain things you have to maintain. Certain protocols for, international reasons and so on and so forth. But the Constitution is not, how long is it going to remain, the things, the Constitution is at risk, much less. The man say, who's to stop him if he say, well, all right, we're going to have a new Constitution. Everything begins, America begins here and now. What happened before? We overcome that. That was just a cycle in our history, and we're moving on to this new dispensation. And
well, I think if he goes down that path, caller.
The people who comforting themselves and saying, "Well, boy, illegal is the people that's illegal that have to worry." If you wanted to stay in America, why didn't you get your papers? These people forget Windrush, man.
Right, well, we saw what happened there.
Something they could invoke because they have no checks and balances. They know, Where the checks and balances, colleagues? You with me? Hello?
Well, I think the checks and balances, as you say, right? They're few and far between now, eh?
So when we talk like that, then we talking stoutly and say
the hope that
have legal people, families with legal. This whole thing could be redefined, my brother. These people could select you and say you personally, I don't like how this guy looks. He doesn't seem to like you, President. I've listened to him. I think he has a talk show program in a little shithole called St. Lucia. And usually, he sounds like he's not too in favor of it. That kind of way, these people could just unpick you and cause the, evil messenger to go against you.
Well, caller, that's interesting that you're going there, because then basically what you're saying is that America, you are fearful that America is going to become everything that America preaches against.
No, but isn't that what Mossad used to do? You forget Mossad, man.
Well, and some people have even said the CIA too has done certain things as
Exactly.
well.
Even
So,
Mossad, the Israeli intelligence,
mhm.
they want anybody, if you're anti-Semitic all over the world, we coming for you, you know. Once we know you're anti-Semitic, we coming for you. So, I mean, it's one of the same thing, you know, what Israel doing. And these people could eliminate, use genocide or whatever it takes to eliminate their opposition. And the thing about it is that they soften a lot of us, well, when I say us, my people up, they soften them up with religion, you know, because there are so many places, there are so many texts in the Bible that would justify what's going on in Gaza, you know. I don't know if you read the Bible.
You think so? That there are texts that justify?
You don't read the Bible.
Yes, I do, but I'm trying to wonder what.
You have never read text from the New Old Testament, even coming up to the New Testament, that would justify eating, you know, what is being done, you know, and that is God's will, you know, as God's will, you know.
Mm.
You mean you have never seen, you have never read?
You mean in terms of the promised land, that therefore that they have rights over the promised land?
You read the Bible and thoroughly, and you have to study it, whether you agree with what it says or disagree, but you need to study it. Do you read it to that kind of? You're a man with a very analytic mind.
Yeah,
right?
I've read it, and I've also read analyses of it as well, and you know,
You need to, because
so
it's such an instrument of such, you know, that could be used so callously that, you know, we need. I mean, we need to study it.
well, I mean, definitely there are the whole concept of Zionism. I mean, is rooted within a scriptural context, right? That they wanted to return to the promised land. That this was a land gifted to the Jewish people, and so therefore they have a right to it by God. So if that's what you mean from that context, and so therefore conquest of Gaza.
King David, you know.
Yeah.
This guy killed so many people, my brother. You know, this whole thing. That's why this whole thing is about blood, death, and death to anybody that opposes the will of these people. That's what it is, you know, in a sense.
Mm.
The last part, well, the part they call the New Testament, said, all right, everybody, you know, it's
all are welcome,
it's the promise
Jews and Gentiles,
and love through the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
But if even that, he is rooted in you know, he's a Jew. He's a Jew. You know what I'm saying? So he might say, all right. When we listen to the apostles and them, they tell you how there's, you know, the kingdom of God is not just there for Jews alone, but for, you know, Gentiles and so on, provided they're converted into Christianity and so on and so forth. But the whole now, and you wonder why, if Christians are not Jews per se. In fact, the Jewish religion scoff on Christianity. You know, why do they take that kind of stand, that pro-Israel stand? You know, with you know, and
it's an interesting one that you raise in there. That there are a lot of evangelical, well, not just evangelicals, but across the board too. That Christians who somehow believe that therefore. Yes, so this is God's chosen people, and so therefore they have a right to that land more than the Palestinians who are there, who interesting enough, the Palestinians were a mix of Christians and Muslims, right? So yes, there is a little bit of this prejudice and bias that whether well placed or not by some Christians. Yes.
So you see where they tie in the whole Judeo Christianity concept, you know, and you know, whether you're South America or Africa or Caribbean, you know about the growth of Christianity, whereas Judaism mightn't have this way. Judaism is growing among the Jews themselves in terms of the influence and the wealth, but in terms of numbers, the count of numbers,
it's a very, very small part of the global population.
Yeah, so
I think numbers, 20 million or so.
The numbers, Christianity makes up the numbers, because the Judeo Christianity, you know, is one of the same, you know, it's the same thing, you know, it's a continuation, you know, it's Moses to Christ, you know, so where they have us there. They have us there, you know, because even, you know, you watch these black fellas trying to find eternal salvation in that same kind of doctrine, you know, after being enlightened and being aware of what slavery and all these atrocities did to us. They still find, you know, salvation there. So you wonder, you know, we just, all our years, we've just been making way and facilitating something worse than what happened to us in slavery. And there it is now. There it is now, because we build that. They actually build that on our backs, and then they're telling us, well, all right, you're expendable now. Go back to your shitholes. We don't need you all again. You know what I mean? That kind of way.
Mm.
Yeah, you come in and argue, you're bright, you go, you have university degrees, you have this and that, you have that, and then go and do that for your people. We don't need you anymore. We could get from Sweden, Norway, Germany, all these countries, you know. We could get the people we select, the people we really want to come to our country to keep America great. You know what I mean? So, and then we're talking about legal and who illegal. You know what I mean, boy, my brother.
All right, caller. Thanks very much for that.
Coffee, you know.
Sorry?
We need to wake up and smell the coffee, because the discourse has changed, you know. The discourse has changed. You know, see how crestfallen thing is, guys. The media, MSNB and CNN. These people have no legitimacy to say, to assert their opinions anymore, because it come like what was being said about them all the time, that they were just drawing from false and falsities and putting something down people to that wasn't the reality. And there you have it now, my brother. Anyway.
Okay, caller. Thanks for that point of view.
Thank you.
Have a good one, and take care. And we'll have to continue with that analysis, that piece, as I indicated, coming from the Pew Research Center, to give some sense as well. I think it's still important that we understand what the reality is, especially given that there'll be lots and lots of propaganda out there. And we have heard, of course, the propaganda war regarding just that. But that's all the time we have here today at the Lunchroom. So we'll be back again tomorrow for another one right here at Radio Caribbean International. I'm your host, Alex Shaw Jr., saying goodbye.